Was there a smoking gun that was missed? I don't think we know that answer either. I have not seen anything that indicates that, but we just don't know. So I think all of those pieces have to be put together before we come to the conclusion they didn't have the right security posture there in Benghazi.
Let's talk about the broader picture, about the wave of anti-American violence across the Islamic world this week. You just heard Ambassador Rice say that this has nothing to do with U.S. policy in the Middle East. It's all about that video that insults the Prophet Muhammad. Congressman, do you believe that?
Boy, I don't. I think this is a convenient effort by all of the groups who have other ulterior motives. If you remember, even I know the ambassador mentioned the Prophet Muhammad cartoons. Well, there were months that went by before violence was incited, and they did that through their own information operations, they being Al-Qaeda and other terrorist groups. And so we know that Al-Qaeda is clearly trying to use this to incite violence. So this is a mechanism to do what they have been trying to do all along. And what we're finding, too, in some of the demonstrators now in Egypt, is finding that a lot of the folks showing up hadn't even seen the video. And this is some of that youth group that really started the change in Egypt. And now, the day the election happened, felt immediately disenfranchised. You have economic problems, religious problems, cultural differences, tribal differences in Libya. All of those things are simmering. And we have had at least what appears to the folks in the Middle East, and they can say what they want, I travel there frequently, the Middle East believe, the countries of the Middle East, believe that there's a disengagement policy by the United States, and that lack of leadership there, or at least clarity on what our position is causing problems. If we all decide to rally around the video as the problem, we are going to make a serious mistake, and we're going to make, I think, diplomatic mistakes as we move forward if we think that's the only reason people are showing up at our embassy and trying to conduct acts of violence.
Well, you're not only the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, you're also a congressman. Let me ask you a political question, not an intelligence question. Do you think the administration is putting it all on the video because that allows them to duck questions about their policies?
Well, I think we have not had a robust debate in the campaign, the presidential campaign, about foreign policy. It has been on the back burner. I mean, the president doesn't talk a lot about it. He hasn't given any speeches really of significance since the 2009 Cairo speech. I do think that, policies overseas have consequences. As a matter of fact, I had a meeting with a senior Middle East intelligence official not a while ago, and I asked him, if I could make you king for a day, what would you ask of the United States? And he stopped for a minute, Chris, and he said, I'd like to know, I would tell you to tell us, what is your Middle East policy? There is no U.S. leadership. That's a pretty powerful thing to hear when you have all of this chaos breaking out now. And this was several months ago. But it just shows that those policies do have some consequence. Now, it's a combination of all the things I just talked about. It is a very, very difficult problem to solve, but you can't solve it by just trying to step back and letting the cauldron simmer on its own. We have to be a part of it, and it doesn't mean militarily, it doesn't mean investing billions and billions and billions of dollars. It's a combination of showing strength and showing up. We have to be there. Israel is
let me just interrupt for a second. You're not going to get to this point. Obviously, relationships were going to be much more complicated after the Arab Spring. Democracies replaced dictatorships. Islamic groups were allowed to protest in the streets, but before they had been crushed. Fairly, given this changing situation, could the administration, the president, have done more to aggressively advance our interests in this changing Middle East?
I'm not going to say it's not hard. I think these are hard problems. But I do think it's important that with U.S. leadership, you don't allow these governments to fan the flames of anti-Americanism for their own domestic consumption and do the wink-wink, nudge-nudge, which exchange public statements about how we all don't like it. That is not a good policy, and it's not going to solve the problem. You need very direct conversation. You need public conversations, and I think from the president as well. And I hope he does start to engage in a public way in foreign policy that helps set the record straight about the United States position. And again, saying that we have great relationships, saying everything is wonderful, saying it's just this one video causing all of this problem. I mean, obviously the bad guys are going to use this as a reason to do what they've already been doing. But we need more than that, and that's where I hope maybe there's a silver lining in this, Chris, and we can turn this around. This shouldn't be about the election. It can't be about the election. It has to be about standing up for national security issues, because it's going to impact us no matter who wins in November, and it has, as we can see, very serious consequences if we don't get it right.
Congressman, should the U.S., and this is a decision you're going to have to make as a member of Congress, should the U.S. either cut off aid to countries like Egypt and Libya, or at least delay it, condition it on the idea that you've got to show that you're willing to protect U.S. interests, whether it's literally protecting our embassies and diplomats or protecting U.S. or advancing U.S. policies?
Well, the first thing is they are obligated to protect our embassy. I wouldn't make that a condition of anything. They need to do that today, without excuse and without delay. On top of that, I think we can condition aid. You know, I always say, if we just completely pull out of Egypt, is America better off, or are we worse off when it comes to being able to influence a better outcome for peace? I think it's probably better that we have some sphere of influence in Egypt, that we can have conversations about, hey, you don't want to provoke Israel, you don't want to continue on with this anti-Americanism, but it has to be conditioned. We shouldn't just give the money and hope for the best. That's not going to work. I think that if we condition the spending and understand it's okay to ask for something that is in our best interest, we shouldn't apologize for that. We shouldn't say that's offensive to anyone. It's our money. It's taxpayer money. And we ought to say, here's what we really want to have happen. And that good influence of the United States, really, we prefer commerce over conflict. And if we can continue to promote that around the world's going to be a better place, but we have to be there for that to happen. So I wouldn't run away from the money right away and say we're going to punish you immediately.